there, welcome. Welcome to Homekeepers. Got myself a good hot cup of tea here with some honey in it and just ready to sit down and have a good time with you. Why don't you grab yourself a cup of tea? It's going to be a great program. I want to welcome you. I always like to welcome new viewers and regular viewers. You mean a lot to us, and we're always thankful for both kinds. But I hope the new viewers will become the regular ones. So welcome to Homekeepers. We try to deal with anything and everything that affects the home. Guess what? That is anything and everything. And that's true, very, very true of our program today, because I got a sister coming on here. Her name is Patricia M. McClure, and my maiden name is McClure. And I'm telling you, there's an instant bond. And when you see us together, you'll know that we are absolutely sisters. And I want to welcome her. She has written a very, very important book. It's called Losing a Hero to Alzheimer's Disease. And if you watch our program regularly, you'll know that Deborah Ray and I have discussed this and some of the contributing factors to it. But here's a gal who has lived with it, with her mother. And my mom lived to be 100, and she had dementia. I've read a couple books on Alzheimer's. I don't think she had Alzheimer's, but she had very, very severe dementia. She don't know me at all toward the end of her life. And it is absolutely heartbreaking. And I'm thankful that Patricia wrote down her story, her experience. I think it could help a lot of people. So I'm glad to welcome her to Homekeepers. I'm going to join Stephanie. Oh, I'm telling you, get this, we're fixing chocolate orange cupcakes. And I licked the bowl, I confess. But let me ask you, was there any greater moment in your life than when you stood this tall beside your mother and licked the bowl? That's what I did. I stood beside Stephanie, and I can't tell you how good it is. It's chocolate with orange juice in it. So I think you will really be intrigued by that. Before I join her, though, we are viewer supported. And, you know, I have a sense that so many of you out there, and you've watched this for years, and you have intended to send an offering to this ministry. Let's live out your intention today. First place, I think if you intended to do it, it's probably the Lord prompting you to do it. So I ask you to do that today, and there's a couple ways you can reach us. The information is on your screen, 1-800-229-0059 if you transact business like Stephanie does. But if you transact it like I do, you use the address Homekeepers, Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758, and that's for that antiquated method of writing out a check. Do you ever write checks?
I write, oh gosh.
I guess no. That would
Not
be
very often.
Yeah? Yeah. I know. But
you're safer than I am, I'll just say that.
Well, you know, that's one thing. Older people are a little bit more circumspect about these types of things. I don't want any information out there.
I did get hacked once, so.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Financially?
Yeah, they charged $2,400 worth of airline tickets.
Where were they going?
Out of the country for Christmas. Not today.
They didn't get to go, did they?
No.
Yeah. Oh, man, don't get me started. I just, people who steal things and all, it's maddening. What happened to your soul? Okay, right. What do you want me to do?
So you have mayonnaise, orange peel, orange juice, and vanilla. You're going to mix those things together for me, okay? I have flour, I have sugar, I have baking soda, I have salt, and I have cocoa that I'm going to mix together. I love making stuff like this from scratch.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
This doesn't have that much sugar in it.
It really doesn't.
That's one thing that I noticed. And the mayonnaise is going to make it really moist.
Yep. And the orange juice and the orange peel. Oh, that's.
I would say though, if you don't want to bake it, just eat the dough. It was so good.
Hey, I'm in. Because there's not an egg in it. There's not a raw egg.
I know it is. It's just kind of an unusual. All right, there's. Oops,
okay.
Get that in there.
So I'm mixing all the dry ingredients. You're mixing all the wet ingredients, and then I'm just going to mix them all together. It makes a very, very thick batter. Let me get us something to mix with here. There you go. Yeah, so you can imagine Arthelene Rippy this morning while I'm making and she's licking the bowl. No.
Well, hey, it took me back to my childhood.
I don't think that was the only bowl you licked this morning.
No.
I think we made something else and you were tasting it.
But anytime you can go back to those pleasant memories of your childhood, it's a good trip.
Yep. That's like when we made that pierogi dish that one time, and it just took me right back to, oh.
And I couldn't even pronounce the word, but she knew all
it
about
was so good.
Oh, it's a Czechoslovakian dish?
Or Polish, yeah.
Polish, yeah. It was good.
So you can see it's very, very thick. And then we have chocolate chips, which you got the dark chocolate.
I got dark chocolate. Always get dark chocolate.
So good.
The recipe does call for milk chocolate, but I am addicted to dark chocolate if I'm going to have chocolate.
I had a hard time putting them away this morning because there was just a few left in the bag.
Yeah. Well,
oh my!
You know where I go get my nails done? There's one of these stores that where you can get all the bulk stuff, you know, the nuts and things, and they have the dark chocolate covered almonds.
Oh, yummy!
And my grandsons love those. So I get those for them about a couple times a month.
Nice.
And that's not a bad snack. Not bad at all, because it's kind of minimum amount of chocolate, and the nuts are good for you.
So you can see how thick it is. It's, I mean, it's much thicker than just a regular batter.
So
and
that's just kind
these
of a
are
heaping
liners.
tablespoon?
Yeah, you're supposed to go 3/4.
Okay.
Up in the liner. I'm not a fan of liners, but they say to use them, so we're following the rules.
Yeah, I wonder
people.
why. And these you just sprinkle.
Do a little dusting. Shake it. Like you mean it. Look how pretty.
Well, I wore black. You know.
Right? Well, I'll do it if you want.
That's good.
Okay, beautiful. Now I gotta try it. I can't wait for you to try it. Oh. Because the batter tasted divine.
I think, was it on the picture of this, was there just a little orange peel on the top?
I think so, yeah.
That would look so neat if you're going to have company.
So fancy.
Well, I don't need to taste these. I know they're good. You know,
Is that?
when you taste it, it's a surprise. Like, where'd the orange juice come from?
Oh my. And that chocolate chip.
She's having a moment. Do you want us to just be quiet a little bit?
That is so moist. You need a good cup of milk with it.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're so used to doing cake mixes.
Oh my gosh.
They are
That
good,
is good
but
stuff.
This is really the
That's better.
old-fashioned
And it's better.
from scratch.
Yes. And that orange juice gives it that little kick.
Yeah.
Delicious. You want this one?
Yep. Because this is one show that tells you if it's not good.
Yes.
We will tell you. So the information will come up on your screen. If you want this one, email us. If you write to us, we need a self-addressed stamped envelope in order to return it to you. But this is going to hold a real good surprise for anybody who tastes one. All right, stay with me. I want you to meet my new sister, okay? Stay with us.
If you would like a copy of today's recipe, you may send your email request to arthelene@rippy.org, or you may write to us at the address on your screen, and in doing so, please include a self-addressed stamped envelope. We thank you for being a part of our Homekeepers family.
All right, I want you to welcome my sister. We just got together. She's a McClure. I'm a McClure. Welcome, Patricia.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
We were just talking about McClure is kind of a Scotch-Irish name.
Yes, yes.
So your father?
My father is originally from Arkansas. We haven't traced it all the way back to my knowledge, but I am aware that it's an Irish name.
Well, you're my sister. I'm
yes,
so glad to meet you. You have written a very thought-provoking book, which has won some awards, I understand.
Yes, actually it won first place in a book. I won 2 first place awards. First place for senior and aging, and also first place for biography and memoirs. And it was also an honorable mention for relationships through 5-star publication.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Also, you've spent more than 20 years in the healthcare industry and been an adjunct college professor.
Yes, so I have my bachelor's in psychology, and I went on to get my double master's. I have a master's in business administration, and a master's in public administration. And so I have worked in the behavioral health care field for the past 20 years at a hospital, a psychiatric hospital. I haven't worked there for the whole entire 20 years, but that's what I'm currently doing now, working at a psychiatric hospital. And then also I am an adjunct professor where I teach healthcare courses.
Well, how long has your mom been gone?
My mom has been gone now for 12 years.
And you were into psychology before and during that time, right?
Yes.
You know what's interesting? Even with your educational knowledge, you experienced everything a daughter would. That didn't relieve, even though you knew a lot of the nuts and bolts of what you're dealing with. This is pretty interesting.
Right. So actually, and let me make a correction. My mom died December 25th of 2004, so that's like 14 going on 15 years.
And on Christmas Day.
On Christmas Day. But you're absolutely right. You still, as a daughter, even though you are aware, because, you know, obviously that's what I do for a living, I still experience the same thing in terms of second-guessing myself, or what some other family members would say is, Patricia, you're being over the top.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the beginning, though.
Okay.
You start out talking about your grandmother, and since she had a very bad marriage, your mother basically did. And is that a thread that can break you down somewhat mentally?
Yes, and I have to tell you, that's something for me because I knew of the history. I mean, I knew about my grandparents' relationship, of course, through my mother, and I know that they didn't have the best of marriage. And my grandmother, at that time, they diagnosed her with senility. And then my grandmother, and then my mom, obviously, I lived through the dysfunction that went on between her and my dad. I lived through it. And I made a vow to myself that I wanted to break that cycle, that wasn't the type of marriage that, you know, that I wanted to have. So I am very fortunate that I found the Lord at a very early age, and, you know, I prayed, and you know, I'm just very fortunate. I ended up marrying a pastor who truly loves the Lord, and he's, you know, very good to me. So I have been able to break that cycle.
Well, that's one of the major things Jesus came to do, is to break those cycles.
Yes.
And I'd like to tell the viewers, you know, you might have generations and generations in your background of dysfunction and all, but it doesn't have to stay that way. One of the most profound sermons I ever heard, I think, was with Chuck Swindoll, saying it only takes one godly life to break the cycle.
Yes.
To start a new generation. Before you went to college, did you notice anything about your mother that gave you, you know, a red flag?
I did a little bit, but I would have to say that I became even more insightful after I graduated from college. But I did start to notice that certain things was just kind of out of the norm for her. Like I tell the story in the book how I was talking to my mom, and it was close to graduation. And I had mentioned to my mom, you know, graduation is coming, and I'm looking so forward to you and Dad coming down for my graduation. And when she said to me, I don't think that I'm going to be able to make it, and she gave a reason, that really hurt, you know, because I knew that that wasn't my mom, that there was no way that my mother would miss a significant event in my life. But fortunately, you know, she did end up coming, but it was the fact that she had even suggested that it was a possibility that she wouldn't be there.
Did you immediately know, though, there's something wrong here? Because she would turn over heaven and earth to be.
Absolutely.
At a college graduation, I think.
Absolutely.
Most parents would walk if they had to.
Yes, and then the reason really wasn't a good reason. She said that she didn't want to basically take the car ride with my father. she didn't want to take the car ride with my father. So it really wasn't, you know, really a
like
good
a big
reason.
red flag.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it was her, you know, we would have a conversation before I would go to my class. This is when I was away at school. And then she would call me back later on in that day, and she would have the same exact conversation as if she had no recollection of the conversation that we had earlier. So I had started towards the end of my college years as an undergraduate, I did start to notice that there were some signs.
Yeah, and I think because you were away,
yes,
that would be very eye-opening. I mean, that would just be an ironclad proof. But because when you live with things every day, you don't notice them so much. Was she ever really diagnosed? Because I understand that when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, that they never know for sure until after the person dies, and they can study the brain, which is full of tangles and so forth. I don't believe my mother had it, but she got to so where she didn't know me, didn't know anyone, but she was 100 years old too. So as it progressed, and I could feel you were kind of torn because you're going on with your life, college, and you're getting married, and you've got this mother out here who helps you, and it seems that you were the one in the family. There's always one that kind of steps in there.
Yes.
And I could sense from your book, it was just really difficult.
Very. It was very, very difficult because my mother always depended on me a lot. I have older siblings, but, you know, unfortunately they had, you know, personal issues of their own. And like I said in the book, societal issues. So they really wasn't in the position to help in the way in which she needed. So yes, it was very, very challenging. It was also very hard because my mother was the rock of our family, and she was the one who, you know, made sure that everything we needed, you know, she made sure that we was provided for properly, even though my dad was there, but my mother was the driving force of our home. So mentally, you know, I had to accept the fact that my mom was different, but at the same time, I had to muster up enough energy to really be there for her the way she had been there for us. And there were sacrifices, you know, of course, that I had to make too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, you being a psychologist adds a lot of weight to this book, I think. That you moved out and you got an apartment and you had some peace and you felt guilty.
Right. Right.
Aren't we guilt driven, I tell you?
Right. Right.
Jesus came to take all that away, and we still live with it.
And you know, and that's interesting too, because I was torn about moving out. And that was very hard for me to do, to move out, you know, because of her condition. And I knew that when I moved that I couldn't move far, you know, because I knew that my mom needed me. But at the same time, it was a time in my life where you know, where I needed to do what people would do in their, you know, mid-20s, early to mid-20s after they graduate from high school. So finally, you know, I was able to make that decision. But I tell you, once I moved out and I was in my own place, you talk about peace, I realized that I never had experienced peace in the fullness of what God meant for peace to be. And so I was able to find that peace once I moved out, you know, on my own.
Yeah, because you lived with your parents in a bit of a turbulent
Absolutely.
marriage. You lived that.
Absolutely.
And then to have your own place, it was a gift of God. There's one part of this book, by the way, if you just joined me, I'm talking to Patricia McClure. She is the author of Losing a Hero to Alzheimer's. And we have her website on the screen. You can get the book. Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's selling like on 25 different online venues.
So take a look, because I have a real strong sense that a lot of the viewers know what we're talking about here. You talked about, I think, where a doctor or somebody in the medical profession would quiz your mother. They did that to my mother.
Oh, okay.
And they asked my mom who the president was. Patricia, I'll never forget it. It still just tears my heart.
Wow.
Because she looked at me like, help. She didn't know that it was President George W. Bush. She didn't, but she looked at me, please help me. And it's one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
Yes, very similar experience. I had to, when I took my mom to the doctor and they did, you know, an assessment, and they asked her different questions, and one being who was the president. And at the time, and I talk about this in a book, at the time it was President Bill Clinton. And so she and my mother was a very prideful, you know, woman. And so when they asked her, she kind of looked at me, and then she responded, President Kennedy. And
oh,
for
really?
me,
She was that back?
Yes, yes. And then they asked her who was the mayor, and, you know, she wasn't current on who the mayor was. And that's something that when they do assessments like that, you know, they want to know what the person's background is. And so I told them that my mother was someone who was very aware, you know, like she always wanted to know what was going on in politics, the media, you know, those were topics that my mother, you know, she was always current. And so that was another defining moment, I guess, for me, that my mother is really losing it, because there's no way that she would not be able to answer questions like that.
I'll tell you a funny one with my mom. She was in assisted living at first, but it was in the area, you know, where she couldn't walk freely outside. But one of the gals who worked there, I was walking down the hall with her, and this worker was my mother says, come here, I want you to meet my sister. She's talking about me. And so she introduced me, and then she says, you know, Arthelene put me in this place, and then she left town.
Oh.
I thought, I'm glad to be your sister today. But there are those things that can be humorous, but they rip your soul.
Absolutely.
They absolutely rip your soul. As your mother progressed, she did end up in a
nursing home.
And did you have to kind of fight a few battles on that, maybe with other family members? And
I did. It was my own guilt, you know, because you have to accept the fact that you can no longer provide this for this person. And so you feel guilty, you feel like a failure, you feel, you know, there was times where I would say, you know, should I just quit my job? But I knew that I wasn't, you know, wasn't in a position to, you know, to quit our jobs. And so I felt very guilty. With my family members, they made certain comments about what they felt that I should do, but at the same time, I knew that they wasn't going to be the ones, you know,
You were the one that had to make the decision.
And so that was very, very hard to me to come to that decision. And so I prayed, I prayed a lot and asked God to help me with that, because it got to a point where, you know, it was also having her in our home became dangerous. And so I talk a lot about that in the book, to where I felt her safety and our safety, you know, was in jeopardy. And so I prayed, and finally, you know, I got the release that I needed. My mom, you know, was having a good day. And at the time I was pregnant, expecting my first child. And my mom was having a good day, and she said to me, if you have to place me in a nursing home, I understand.
Really?
Yes, and she was having a very good day that day, and that's something that I often found myself going back to, is the statement that she made to me that day, because that was really what I needed to say. Okay,
it was a God thing.
It was, and to be honest with you, if God had not laid that on her heart to say that to me, I probably still would have been struggling and going back and forth with my decision.
You also kind of have to put your emotions on the shelf. And
Yes.
say, what is best for her?
Yes.
Where will she be safest?
Yes.
And where will she have 24-hour-a-day care?
Yes.
7 days a week. We're running out of time. I want to remind you once again that my guest is Patricia McClure, losing a hero. You loved your mommy, didn't you?
I did. I really did.
To Alzheimer's. We've had the website up for quite a while. I have no doubt whatsoever that a lot of you good, sweet viewers of ours are You know exactly what we're talking about. Tell me about her last day. She died on Christmas Day.
She did.
That's a mixed bag, isn't it?
It is.
Because how could you help but rejoice that she's released on such a wonderful day in the presence of Jesus?
Absolutely. She was born on the 26th. So she died the day before her actual birthday. And
which she would have been almost 70. That's young.
The next day she would have been 70.
Yeah.
And you know, that's where I was, the fact that she passed away on Christmas morning, that really helped me because of course that day means so much to us as Christians. And so I took that and I said, my mother must have been a very special lady to leave out of here on Christmas morning on Christ's birthday.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know, it's just an incredible story, and how the Lord, you can look back and see the Lord's hand everywhere. I think of Andre Crouch's song, I thank God for the mountains, I thank him for the valleys, I thank him for the storms he brought me through.
Yes.
Because if I never had a problem, I'd never know that he could solve them.
Yes.
I would never learn what faith in God could do. And she would have to be awfully proud of the beautiful young woman you are, your accomplishments, and how this whole thing kind of motivated you to another direction, to go up higher.
Yes.
You kept going up higher. Do you think she was ever aware of some of your major accomplishments? I think even graduating from college makes a parent proud.
Yes. She was aware. I mean, she was aware that I graduated from college. She was aware that after college, God blessed me to get a decent job. And I've always been in a business to help people, so I've worked with people with special needs. I was always very involved in church, so that is a quality that I would say that my mom passed on to me because my mother was a true servant. And so she knew that I was a true, that I'm a servant at heart. And I consider that an accomplishment, being a servant of God.
Well, you represent her beautifully, and I'm glad the Lord sent you our way. We are out of time, but if you're going through the same things, pardon me, that Patricia went through, her story ought to be a wonderful encouragement to you that God is with you now as you're going through these difficult times, and he will be with you all the way. Please join me next time, remembering there's no higher calling than that of a homekeeper. God bless you.
If you should miss a Homekeepers program, you can catch up by going to www.ctnonline.com. Click on CTN Programs and then on Homekeepers.